Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Van Meter. We have Andrew Boswell, and welcome to the SCG Tour Atlanta Open Finals between Tom Ross on White Red Humans and Todd Stevens on Ban Humans. It looks like Tom had the seeding coming into this match as the 5th place, leading to the top 8, where Todd was only 6th place. So Tom's going to get to be on the play, and that is going to be absolutely huge.
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal. This is a tempo-orientated matchup, and based on how the decks are configured, I think Todd has a slight deck building advantage over Tom, but that slight advantage is only going to matter if Todd doesn't fall behind too much, and Tom having the initiative here might be able to use that to his advantage.
Well, Tom's going to start out with a Dragon Hunter. Todd's going to have a Thraben Inspector on his first turn. We're not missing the clue token, or the clue trigger this time. Tom has 2 more Dragon Hunters on the second turn, and he's just going to pass the turn back. Something like Always Watching or Thalia's Lieutenant next turn could make his force be pretty formidable.
This Lambholt Pacifist, though, is a great play from Todd Stevens. Lambholt Pacifist is even a card that the green-white tokens decks will sideboard against this white-red human deck. So the fact that Todd Stevens just has this main deck, bodes quite well for him.
Well, this Thalia's Lieutenant for Tom Ross is going to pump all of his creatures into 3/2s. He's going to send them into the red zone. 1 is going to trade with the Lambholt Pacifist, but then 6 damage is going to come through, knocking Todd Stevens down to 14.
So what Todd really wants here is a Reflector Mage, but that Evolving Wilds means that it's not going to be an available play just quite yet.
So Revolving Wilds is going to find an island for Todd here after he plays a Thalia's Lieutenant. That's going to bump his Thraben Inspector up to a 2/3, but it looks like Tom has found another land. He's going to use Knight of the White Orchid. This is going to pump his Thalia's Lieutenant up to a 2/2. He's going to be able to get a Plains because he's down a land on Todd Stevens. Now he has another Plains in his hand, so if he has a land and another human, he can grow his Thalia's Lieutenant into a 3/3, which will be able to attack freely through this.
And even without the land, just having another card to cast this turn is just putting Tom farther and farther ahead on tempo. Oh!
So he has a 1-drop and a Thraben Inspector to get a clue and grow his Thalia's Lieutenant, and a Griff's Boon to grow his Thalia's Lieutenant yet again and put it in the sky. So he's attacking with a 3/2, a 3/2, and a 4/3 flyer right now. This is a lot of damage coming over on turn 4 before Todd Stevens can just even do anything.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, meet Tom Ross. If you don't know him, this is who he is.
That Thraben Inspector is going to trade with a Dragon Hunter.
And what's great about putting the Griff's Boon on the Thalia's Lieutenant is if Todd Stevens wants to play a Reflector Mage, he basically has to play it on the creature that has Griff's Boon. But replaying the Thalia's Lieutenant because of the come in of the playability is something that Tom is happy to do.
Looks like a Reflector Mage is going to bounce that Thalia's Lieutenant. Let's see how Tom decides to play this turn.
God, I already feel awful for betting against Tom Ross. What was I thinking?
I don't know. I even gave you a chance to change your mind.
Oh, man.
All right, this Dragon Hunter is going to come into the red zone. It's going to trade.
And Todd is going to take every opportunity he can to trade. He just wants to preserve his life total and get into a later game scenario. He's hoping that he can get a chance to deploy all of his cards and leverage something like Tireless Tracker or Collected Company to generate some card advantage and put him ahead.
Tom's going to crack a clue. He's going to play that Consul Lieutenant and pass the turn. Todd Stevens is also going to crack his clue. Let's see what else he has to add to the board. But next turn, another Thalia's Lieutenant is going to enter the battlefield and pump his team. And I think that Tom even has another Griff's Boon to just do a lot of damage here.
Another thing that Todd's really got to be worried about here is a Declaration in Stone. Killing both of Todd's creatures and attacking with the team.
Which is exactly what Tom drew. Geez. Declaration in Stone. Here comes his own Thalia's Lieutenant, and that's going to be game.
Yeah, Todd Stevens
you
has
called
just got
it. You just made that happen.
Oh, so it's my fault?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? Yeah, Todd Stevens, he just way too far behind on the board there. Tom stealing that initiative, pushing it even farther than you normally would by just being on the play, sequencing multiple spells on even the early turns, and really showing what his deck can do.
Tom's going to take game 1 here in the finals of SCG Atlanta. White Red Humans over Todd Stevens on Ban Humans. Let's take a look at the player sideboards here while they start sideboarding. Let's see what exactly is going to come in here. So Tom has 1 Griff's Boon, 3 Handworm Militia Captain, 4 Needle Spires, 4 Reckless Bushwhacker, a Silk Wrap, and 2 Stasis Snare. What do we think he's going to sideboard?
So I think that Tom is likely to bring in the additional Griff's boons. These the things just get so clogged up on the ground. Having a flyer is so great. And also, I think he's going to bring in the Handwire Militia Captains. That's a great card to bring in when you know that your opponent doesn't have a lot of removal. So also, Todd Stevens doesn't have the big sweepers that some of the other green-white tokens decks have. So Handwire Militia Captain looks like it can do some serious work.
Now on Todd's side, we have 2 Archangel Abyssin, 2 Declaration in Stone, 2 Den Protector, 2 Gideon Ally of Zendikar, a Graph Mole, a Linvala the Preserver, 3 Negate, and 2 Profaner of the Dead. What do we think Todd's going to bring in?
So I think he's got a couple options here, and I'm not 100% sure exactly what he'll do. The cards that I think for sure are going to come in are the Graph Mole and the Linvala the Preserver. I actually saw on Twitter that it was actually Tom Ross who suggested to Todd Stevens to put the Graph Mole in his sideboard, and Todd Stevens hasn't cast it yet. And Tom Ross was joking around that maybe he'll finally get an opportunity to do so in this finals. The other card he might bring in also, though, is Profaner of the Dead. Just as a way to bounce things, but that can be a little bit of a dicey situation because between Thalia's Lieutenant and Always Watching, creatures can get pretty big.
Plus, I mean, do you really want to bounce with Thalia's Lieutenant?
Yeah, it's not great. It's better than dying to it. But
So, who do you think has the edge here in the post-board matches? Post-board games?
So I think that things for neither deck change a whole lot. Linvala the Preserver is a really big deal, but it's only a one of. So I think that for the most part, things are going to be pretty much the same. Todd Stevens being on the play for this game too is going to be a really big deal. It's a very tempo-orientated matchup, and Todd Stevens having that on his side is going to be a really big help. So I'd expect Todd to take this game too. And then for game 3, Todd is going to need some good Reflector Mages, maybe off of a Collected Company to stabilize the board. But if he can do that, he's likely to win the longer game.
Well, I definitely can agree with all of that. Personally, Tom's one of my buddies.
Yeah.
Todd's one of my buddies. I don't even know who I want to root for here. I think I just kind of want to see how the chips fall. Now, Tom Ross is a content provider for StarCityGames.com. You can catch his articles and his videos on the premium side. In fact, the article that he wrote earlier this week is probably one of the best articles that we've ever had on our website, just about perspective in gaming and Magic, and just doing, like, basically the takeaway from it is that Tom has resigned himself to always leaning on his strengths and just doing what he does best regardless of what everybody else says or what everybody else thinks is best for him to do. And that's exactly what he's doing here as White Red Humans. Tom has also written for our newsletter every now and then, and you can check that out as your source for Magic the Gathering news. Get the latest on the SCG Tour. You can watch the SCG Tour Match of the Week, receive exclusive deck lists and advice, catch up on all event results, and even read an exclusive cardboard crack comic, absolutely free. Go to starcitygames.com/newsletter. You might even be able to see some writing from Andrew Boswell on there every now and then.
Yep, I've been there. Chris Van Meter's been there. We've seen Craig Krempel's on there. It's if you're going to subscribe to one thing, this is a great way to keep up to date with everything at a pretty minimal investment of your time.
And it's absolutely free.
Yep. Minimal investment of your money also.
Yeah, the stone minimal investment of your money.
We make it easy for you.
StarCityGames.com newsletter, your source for Magic the Gathering news. Man, this has just been an insane tournament.
This has been a great top 8, and all around it has been a great tournament. I know that the coverage was down a little bit, but everything got recorded, will be archived. So if any of you guys missed our earlier rounds, you can definitely go back and check them out. They were great.
All right, so let's see here. Looks like both players might be going to 6 on a mulligan. I think that this does favor Todd if both players mulligan.
Yeah, maybe. It's a little tricky, though, because his mana can be kind of sketchy. If he mulligans too much, he may find himself in a situation where he just doesn't have access to all of his colors. For the most part, his deck is just a green-white deck, splashing a very minimal amount of blue. So a lot of times he can survive on just green and white mana for a while. But if he starts to fall behind in any way, Reflector Mage, a blue card, is how he catches back up.
Yeah, Reflector Mage is very good. Looks like both players are going to keep their 6. Looks like Tom scried his card to the bottom. Todd is deciding where he wants to go. All right, he's going to go back up top. Here we go for game 2, Tom Ross versus Todd Stevens. Todd's going to lead off on a Canopy Vista tapped. Tom has a Plains and no 1-drop. That is pretty big.
Yeah, that is great for Todd Stevens. Not only does he get to be on the play, but so far there's no pressure on the board.
Todd just has a Prairie Stream tapped on turn 2, so he does have access to all of his colors. Let's see what Tom's going to do to try and apply some pressure. Looks like he did draw an Anointer of Champions for his turn, and then just going to pass the turn back. What do we have here?
Oh,
There's that Graph Mall.
and that is the first time that he's playing it. You can see him smiling.
He's just so happy.
Yeah, I think he's kind of smirking because this is a card that Tom Ross told him to put in his deck.
Yeah, I mean, how does Tom beat this outside of just using a Declaration in Stone? It's a 2/4, very hard for him to attack through it. It's just going to gain 1 billion life. I mean, we saw Chihoy earlier against Jerry. He sacrificed like 8 clues during that game.
Yeah, it's going to be a little interesting. Todd Stevens, the only source of clues he has in his deck are some Thraben Inspectors and Tireless Trackers. That's like 8 total cards. But the fact that Tom Ross has Declaration of Stones as one of his primary removal spells means that Todd Stevens may actually have access to a lot of clues.
Well, here's a Consul's Lieutenant for Tom, and he's going to use a Griff's Boon on that Anointer of Champions and get in for 2 points of damage. I wonder if Tom has another copy of Griff's Boon that he can put on that Knight of the White Orchid he just played.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Tom wants to do as soon as the ground starts getting gummed up, is start taking to the skies with these Griff Spoons.
All right, let's see what Todd has for his 4th turn. A Collected Company would be great here. Ooh, he is just going to Thraben Inspector, get a clue, represents 3 life.
Wow,
and a
this
Reflector
is a big
Mage.
turn. So one of the things that makes Collected Company so good is that it allows you to play 2 spells on turn 4. But even though Todd Stevens doesn't have Collected Company, he gets to play 2 cards on his turn 4. So about equal to playing a Collected Company, which is one of the premier cards of Standard.
So that Reflector Mage is going to bounce what's actually a Dragon Hunter. It was not an Anointer of Champions. I recognized it incorrectly. Todd Stevens is down to 16. Tom is at 18. Let's see what kind of action Tom has here. He is quite a bit behind, and that Graph Mole is looking to provide quite a bit of advantage in this aggressive match.
Yeah, this is tough. That Graph Mole is already attacked, and Todd Stevens' deck, he can start getting aggressive pretty soon, especially with the life cushion that this Graph Mole is going to provide. This game is a stark contrast from Game 1. Game 1, Tom had the 1-drop. He had, I think he had 2 1-drops on turn 2.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he was on the play, and it was just a blistering start. He was so far ahead of Todd Stevens. But this time, Tom's draw wasn't quite as fast, and he was on the draw, and it's a completely different picture.
Well, here we have an Always Watching for Tom. He's going to be able to attack in for 3 with that Knight of the White Orchid. Even if Tom does happen to lose this game, we will be going to Game 3, where Tom will be back on the play, and he can leverage the low casting cost of the creatures in his hand. But he's still in this game right now. That Always Watching is a pretty big play, and if Todd isn't able to find a copy of Dramoka's Command to get rid of it, Tom's creatures are going to be significantly larger than what Todd's ready to handle.
Yeah, this matchup is based primarily on creature versus creature combat, and a 3/3 Vigilance First Striker is pretty good in this board state. Not only that, but with that Griff's Boon in the graveyard, Tom can just cast it from the graveyard, put it on one of his creatures. Then not only does he have a flying attacker, but he also has protection from a Dramoka's Command.
Looks like Tom did pick up a copy of Declaration in Stone this turn, but he has another Griff's Boon that he's going to put on his Knight of the White Orchid.
And a Dramoka's Command here would be phenomenal. If Todd Stevens did have a Dramoka's Command, he could cast it in response to the Griff's Boon, making Tom sacrifice an enchantment and having his Reflector Mage fight the Knight of the White Orchids that's being targeted. But unfortunately, that is not the case.
Well, Tom is going to cast a Griff's Boon and then put another Griff's Boon from his graveyard onto the other Knight of the White Orchid. Todd has a Collected Company when Tom goes into his attack step, but all he hits is a Lambholt Pacifist, and he's going to take 8 points of damage and fall down to 5, and he is under a lot of pressure here.
Oh man, could Tom win this literally in the next couple minutes? Todd Stevens is under the gun. He's facing 2 attackers that can put him to 1. He needs to deal with both of them if he's going to have any hope in this game, and even if he deals with one, that Griff's Boon can be flashed back from the graveyard, so Tom could be inches away from winning this.
Well, Todd is just going to pass the turn. His Lambholt Pacifist is going to transform into the Butcher version. Tom does have a lethal attack here if Todd Stevens doesn't have anything. There's a Dragon Hunter. Let's see what he's going to do. That Town Gossip Monger can be transformed after it attacks. Looks like Tom did put his jacket on for the finals, I'm noticing here.
Oh yeah, you gotta be ready.
Why not? Oh, Archangel Avacyn. His creature is going to be a 4-power first striker, though. Avacyn is going to have indestructibility.
Yeah, so he's going to be able to eat one of the first strikers. Todd Stevens is going to go to 1, though, so Todd Stevens still needs to find some way of making it so that he doesn't die to Tom just recasting that Griftspoon from the graveyard and attacking with 2 creatures. I think this is almost a situation where Todd would like it if one of his creatures died. He also has that clue, which is going to be a pretty big deal.
Yeah, he'll be able to gain some life, but both of those flying attackers are going to be lethal.
Yeah, they're both going to hit for 4.
Interested to see what Todd has in his hand.
If Todd had a Thraben Inspector, he could live. If he had a Dromoka's Command, he could live. If he had a Reflector Mage, he could live. There's a lot of things that he could have here to survive.
Looks like Todd's going to attack with all of his creatures to see if he can walk Tom into blocking 1 to kill it off so that he can transform his Avacyn. That's not going to happen. Tom's just going to take a bunch of damage, go down to 9. Todd's going to crack this clue. And I think that he just has 2 Lambholt Pacifists in his hand.
Oh, and he drew a forest, and this could be it.
So if he draws a blank, this could be it.
We have seen Tom Ross, one of the best players in the room, take down some great opponents. We saw him face 2 matches that I thought were bad for him, and Tom just pushed his way through with blistering speed. That was unbelievable. Tom the Boss Ross just slays Todd Stevens. Todd Stevens, though, he did a great job in this event. He played well. I thought, this was a performance you should really be proud of, but you just can't mess with the boss.
Tom Ross is going to take this entire tournament down. White-Red Humans beats Todd Stevens 2-0 here in the finals. Holy moly.
Yeah, holy moly indeed. Tom the Boss Ross, ladies and gentlemen.
What a journey. Right, he had to beat Cedric Phillips in his win and in to get in the top 8. Then he gets paired against Jerry Thompson at 16-0 in the semifinals.
They didn't say it'd be easy.
Makes it through Jerry Thompson. Gets paired against Todd Stevens, who is real hungry, 3 spots ahead of him on the Player of the Year leaderboard, and beats him 2-0 in the finals. In that second game, I didn't know how he was going to pull that out. He was way behind on board. Todd was making some good exchanges, and then one after another, always watching, double Griftspoon, getting a bunch of damage.